2002 Resource Conservation Commission meeting. We do have a quorum, so we can go ahead and get started. Kim, would you like to be timekeeper for us tonight?
Sure.
Okay. So Kim is appointed timekeeper for this meeting. Item 2 on the agenda is a public appearance for non-agenda items. I believe, Scott, there's somebody there that wants to has a non-agenda item that wants to bring up with Gabrielle.
No, sir. He will be speaking on the CIP on 4F.
Oh, 4F, okay. Okay, so no one else in the audience? Okay, no one says there's no other public comments from the public. Let's move on to item 3, approved minutes. Draft minutes from the, I hope everyone's had a chance to review the draft minutes from February 14th, 2002. Is there a motion to accept the minutes as printed?
I move approval of the minutes.
I second.
Okay, was that Diane? Okay, Diane second. Who made the first motion?
That was Gabriella.
Oh, okay. She's on mute. She's still on mute.
Oh, yep, I made a motion. Yep.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Okay, since there's no oh, go ahead.
I'll just say that, Phil, I think these are great. And I think sometimes your old notes, minutes were so detailed. I think this is the perfect amount of detail. Like you didn't have to go. I mean, I think this is spot on in terms of what I'd like to see personally. So good work.
Yeah, I think so too. I actually compared them with a bunch of other minutes from different other meeting minutes in the city, and ours seems to fit right in, maybe go beyond what some other folks do. So they look good, Phil. Okay, if there's no other discussion on the meeting minutes, I make a motion to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion minutes approved. Okay, let's move on to agenda item 4, a new business, a resolution R-20-22, authorizing the purchase of a 2022 street sweeper. Do I have a motion to approve that resolution? I mean, to a motion to open the resolution?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Second, okay, open for discussion.
I have a question. I'm wondering why we're not wrapping this one. The one that we have now that's wrapped really looks nice, and I'm wondering why this one isn't being wrapped.
So I can just tell you what happened. I think that's a separate that would come forward as a separate resolution, is my understanding.
Okay. And my other question has to do with the math. On page 6. I'm not sure, in the 3rd paragraph, they're talking about the factory training option, bringing the total to $2,090,941.70. I don't get there from the $299,972 and $295,641.
Yeah, I had the same problem. I couldn't figure it out either.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, I was part of the discussions for the other committees, so I'm trying to follow.
So I can pull this up really quickly. I've got the agenda here. So this is one actually, is Bill in the council chambers by any chance? I don't know if this is one that he could speak to. So we had, I think what Dan's referring to is this total here, 290,941.
Yes.
Where the lower quote here was 295,641.70. I had not looked through this in detail yet, and I'm curious because this is $4,500. It's $4,700 below this.
But it's not 45,000.
I was wondering if we subtracted 4,500 instead of 45,000 for the trade-in. Gabriella, I don't know if you know where this final number comes from, but I'm not sure about that.
So the actual resolution is authorizing the 295,641. the actual words of the resolution. I know that that looks like the,
But does that take in consideration the 45,000 trade-in?
so no. We approve the purchase of the raw purchase, and then the trade-in happens afterward.
Well, actually, I think the city is auctioning it off starting at 44,000, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's technically the budget has, it has the cost at 250,000. And so with the trade-in value, it brings it just slightly below 250,000. But yeah, we're authorizing the 295 and then 295,000. And then with the anticipation that we'll be able to trade in the old one for 45,000.
So the plan is to maybe do a wrap on that, but do that separately?
I don't know for sure, but I if I recall correctly, I thought that the wrap came separately last time, but even so, I imagine that it's a budget issue. We're very close to the full price of the budget. So
Diane, when you say rep, what do you mean?
Do you remember when we went to the maintenance building when they presented?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. The drawing that was.
Oh,
around.
drawing. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Bill, can you help us with that?
Yeah, if we get more money in the trade-in, then we can go ahead and do the wrap. But because we were so close on the budget, we just stuck to the basics. Yeah, the wrap was the artwork that you can put on the side of the vehicle, that artwork or logos and things like that. So
How much was the artwork on the previous one? Do you remember?
no, I don't. I'd have to look up what that was.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this resolution? Okay, if there's no further discussion, I make a motion to approve resolution R-20-22. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. There's none that oppose, so therefore we approve this resolution. Next on the agenda, item new business, resolution R-50-22, resolution adopting the 2021 NR 2016 permit annual report. Is there a motion to approve it?
I make that motion.
I'll second.
Open for discussion.
Bill, why hasn't there been any Saltwise training in 2021? Why wasn't there any? You're muted. Oh,
Yeah, we did have Saltwise training in 21. It was in October. It's just that when we put the draft report together, we missed that. It's in the final report that we sent into the DNR. We had, I think it was 27 people attend that from the city.
okay. I just want to comment on, I know that you do calibration of the equipment, but for some reason, it seems to, there still seem to be piles of salt sort of dumped. I'm not sure why that happens, and it doesn't seem to be predictable, but something that you might want to, it's difficult for us to tell people to cut back on their salt when there's like a pile of salt sitting in the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every once in a while an auger will get stuck open, the hydraulics will just keep it running. And it's just part of the vehicle maintenance that we try to keep on top of. So when we notice that, we make sure we get it fixed, but that happens once in a while.
Okay. By the way, I still have not heard from the chamber, and since this kind of fits in with the permitting process of the city, perhaps whoever takes the Claudia's position or the part-time position can just start following up to get that accomplished.
Right.
Thank you, Bill. Any other discussion on this resolution? If there's no further discussion on resolution, make a resolution that we approve resolution R-50-22. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. There are no nays, so therefore the resolution is approved by the commission. Okay, next on the agenda item. How are we doing for time, Kim?
Guys are doing great. Keep it up.
Okay.
We're ahead of
So-
schedule.
And so John, you got a little extra time there. Our next speaker is John Rummel. He's with the Madison Astronomical Society. And he's going to give a presentation or overview about the dark sky, something that we've talked about potentially adopting a dark sky ordinance, which is the next item on our agenda. And John has some experience in this area, so I invited him to attend to give us an overview of what a dark sky is and how some cities have adopted these dark sky ordinances in the past to help, with sustainability and also improving the visual aesthetics in their neighborhoods with regarding to lighting and things like that. So with that, John, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to you. I assume you can share your screen.
I am going to try.
Okay.
I'm getting like, are you seeing my calendar?
Yes.
That's a good sign. Now you should be seeing my first slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So just by way of introduction, I want to point out that I am not a lighting engineer or any kind of a lighting professional. I am a longtime amateur astronomer, and as Ron said, a longtime member of the Madison Astronomical Society. Dark skies are something that I've been close to both in my my avocation, that is being an amateur astronomer, as well as some advocacy for many years. So I started off a few weeks ago by going around and taking some pictures around Fitchburg that I'll use lightly for some illustrations tonight. And I'm going to talk for about 10 minutes, by the way. But this is a picture that I hope most of you recognize. This is a Fitchburg location that is, very historic observatory that used to belong to the UW-Madison Astronomy Department and was moved to Fitchburg in 1960 by the Madison Astronomical Society. The Astronomical Society owned it for about 25 years, used it for about 25 years, until MAS was driven further away from Madison by the encroachment of light pollution by Madison, and that was back in 1985. I'm going to come back to this observatory at the end because there's some interesting historical precedent for Fitchburg talking about issues related to lighting, and so I want to end with that. First of all, just a couple of definitions. What is light pollution? There are a lot of different definitions. A lot of people define the term differently, but this is a definition that I like and that I stick to. Any adverse effect or impact attributable to the use of artificial light at night. There are many different examples and many different kinds of light pollution that we can talk about, but they all amount to one thing. They represent a form of waste because there's too much light being used, or there's light being directed to the wrong place, light being directed where it's not needed. So these are just 4 examples: light trespass, overlighting, light clutter, in the bottom left-hand corner there, representing poor planning for light. By the way, can you see my cursor? Is my cursor visible? Okay,
Yes.
good. And then glare. And again, there are other kinds of light pollution that we could talk about, but just for simplicity's sake, those are a couple of the prominent ones. What causes light pollution? This is an easy one. Artificial light at night is what causes light pollution. And I put the acronym there, ALAN, because this is a topic that is studied by scholars. You will find, research level scientists writing articles in the literature about artificial light at night, and they have begun to use this acronym ALAN. And so I will use it a little bit also tonight. What do we know about light pollution? 80% of the world lives under light polluted skies, 80% of the world. And obviously we're talking about land area there, not oceans. The Milky Way is hidden from approximately 1/3 of humanity. Because of the light levels where they live, about 1/3 of people can't see the Milky Way from where they live. And about 88% of Europe and half of the US experience what we call a perpetual twilight. That is, the night sky is never truly dark. We never reach that level of what we call nautical or astronomical twilight because of the presence of light pollution. Alan is a global issue. It is all over the world. One of the articles whose references I'll give you at the end makes the observation that there are many ways that humanity has altered the environment in which we live, and light pollution is one of the most striking ones. It's possible to be in a location dozens or even hundreds of miles from significant population centers, but you can still see and measure the effects of light pollution. So going a little bit more local, this is a blow up of that World at Night, Globe at Night project looking just at the United States. And these are artificial lights. And then zooming in on the Midwest area, you can see Chicago is the big supernova there in the middle, Milwaukee above it. Madison is a little bit off to the left, and then Minneapolis up to the upper left-hand corner. Why does this happen? It's really relatively simple. Simple to explain, complex to address. Light is overused relative to what we need. We use more light than we need. Why does this happen? Well, much of it is just simple wastefulness. And I'll come back to the topic of waste. And then wastefulness results mostly from a lack of awareness. People just don't know any better. Why does it matter? There are a number of reasons besides astronomy. Astronomy is near and dear to my heart, but there are a lot of other more important focuses, I would argue. The primary of which is energy security and climate change. And you can exchange the words energy security there at the left-hand side for dollar signs. Every lumen that we use to illuminate the night somewhere, our streets, our driveways, our parking lots, is money out of our pockets. And when we use more light than we need, that represents a waste of money above all. So not only does it hurt the environment, it hurts our pocketbooks too collectively. A lot of people tie the issue of lighting to crime. It's a very common sense kind of association to make, but a lot of people do so in error because the simple equation that we're often presented with, that more light equals safer streets or safer neighborhoods, does not necessarily get backed up by the evidence when you look at the evidence. Traffic safety is an issue, and of course, wildlife is also a primary issue. I want to bring this back to local, so I'm going to throw a map of Madison up here, and I'm going to go back to the kind of thing that I showed you a minute ago with that picture of the world and the US at night, visualizing light pollution. This is data from a data set that NASA helps to maintain, data that's gathered by satellites to estimate the amount of light pollution in an area. So I'm not going to go deeply into the color coding here, except to say that it is meaningful. And the darker colors, especially the darker reds, oranges, and at the other end of the scale, all the way up to whites, represent more ambient light pollution. So this is a map of Madison with the overlay from the 2006 data. And you can see that central Madison there is under a blob of kind of a reddish purple. And as you go out from there, the colors get a little bit, other shades of orange or red, and then out to the yellows and eventually the greens. Obviously, the light pollution is focused there in the center. I'm going to shift now to the same map, but I'm going to show you the data in 2020. So fast forward 14 years. This is what Madison looked like with this data set in 2006. And this is 2020. And I'll go backwards just for a minute to show you that back in 2006, Madison was under that kind of purple blob, surrounded by kind of a darker shade, or lighter shade of red, I guess, and then a lighter shade of red and then yellow. Watch in particular how the purple blob in the middle is replaced by more of a red, and everything just migrates out as that light signature grows. And that's just in the last 14 years. You can imagine what it would have looked like back in, say, 1970 or 1950. And by the way, using my cursor, you can see this little blob of white right there near Central Madison. That's not right on the Capitol, but that's actually the East Washington Street area. That white area represents where the light pollution is greatest. If we were looking at a map instead of Chicago or New York City or Los Angeles or any big city, it would just be an intense blob of white miles on the side. Zoom in a little bit on Fitchburg. So now we're looking south of the Beltline. There is the Fitchburg area. And this is the same overlay again from the 2006 data. And I want you to watch that strip of that kind of yellowish color that is enveloping Fitchburg in 2006. As we go to the 2020 data set, you see how, again, everything just kind of migrates southward. Now that strip of yellow is down here about 6 to 12 miles south of the Fitchburg area. As we continue to develop, light pollution continues to increase and encroach on everything. It's primarily caused by this. On the left-hand side, we have undesirable forms of light represented by these unshielded fixtures. So this light fixture spills a lot of its light up into the sky where it's not needed. This is a globe light fixture. These are probably the worst example because they spill fully half or more of their light because they're actually a little bit shielded on the bottom. And then traditional street lights with this kind of, half globe, or think of Cobra head street lights, as opposed to the right-hand side where you have examples of shielded lights that are intentionally designed to direct their light where we need it downward to our driveways or our streets or our parking lots, our walkways, and so forth. So basically, it's a pretty simple matter of choosing light fixtures with this in mind. So here's some examples of bad light fixtures. There are many, many, many more examples than this, but this is the kind of lighting that many cities have chosen because of their appearance. They look nice. They have kind of a retro look or a period style that people like. But the problem is, anytime you can, stand in a horizontal inclination and see a naked light bulb, that's not a good light. Those lights should be shielded as these are, again, to direct the majority of their light downward where we can use it, where we need it. I want to just briefly talk about two municipalities. First is Tucson. Several years ago, Tucson underwent a citywide retrofit project to replace their high pressure, low pressure sodium lights with LED lights. And without going too deeply into this, you can see that before the retrofit, fully 98+% of Tucson lights were high pressure sodium or low pressure sodium, which is really unfriendly band of the electromagnetic spectrum. Only about 1% of their lighting was LED. After the retrofit, high pressure, low pressure sodium dropped to about 67%, and 3000 Kelvin temperature LEDs, which is a good warm temperature, up to about 32%. Tucson reduced its total, think of lumens as total light production, by about 63%, depending upon how you measure it. If you want more information, I'm going to give you guys this reference. This is an article that was written by a researcher named John Barentine, about the Tucson project. A lot of good information in here. It's a recent enough article that many of the names mentioned from the Tucson project, people in the city who worked on it, are still there. The other thing I'm going to mention, this is a publication that doesn't show on its face what it is, but this is a publication by the state of Utah. Utah is working on statewide initiatives to preserve their dark skies. Utah has 5 national parks, dozens of state parks, and they take their dark skies very seriously, including in some of their metropolitan areas. Just a quick look at the table of contents. If you want a one-stop shop as a reference for what you should be thinking about and what you might want to look into as a municipality yourselves, this is a really, really good guide. And again, I will give you the reference. Just a quick look at some of the, Yeah, go ahead.
I just had a quick question. I noticed in that Tucson slide that there was an annual saving of almost about $2.1 million. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, they replaced up here, they replaced approximately 20,000 fixtures with these 3,000 Kelvin LED lights. And not only did they replace these fixtures, which with LED fixtures that are much, much lower in power consumption, it's in here somewhere. They also had a graduated, the lights were fully illuminated until midnight, and then at midnight they reduced them to 60% capacity, and then they extinguished them at sunrise. So in addition to choosing better fixtures and better lights, they actually had a program to dim them after midnight. And the city of Tucson got surprisingly little negative pushback and a lot of positive vibe. Tucson is a city that took the element of astrotourism or dark sky tourism very seriously starting back in the 70s. And I'm going to come back to that with respect to Fitchburg too. But all the information in this slide, I'll make available to you guys so you can take a read yourselves. In addition to the Utah one, I'll make available to you. Curiously, if you look in the URL, this comes from New Mexico, the URL. I think New Mexico is basically stealing Utah's model because New Mexico wants to implement it too, though I'm not sure about the details of that. Table of contents of the Utah document, a really, really good document. A couple of the references that I skipped over quickly, the color coding in that slide of the light pollution comes from a remote sensing program run by NASA. There's a great article in the journal Sustainability, very recent, earlier this year, just an overview of a lot of the research that's been done in the use of artificial light at night and its impact on the environment. Great article. Here's the reference for the Tucson retrofit that I'll make sure that you guys have access to, and that guide for the state of Utah. So to wrap it up, I want to come back to the observatory that sits on that hill above Fish Hatchery Road. Used to belong to the university, used to belong to the Madison Astronomical Society. I think it belonged to Fitchburg for a while, but now it's on Promega property. But how many of you are aware, as Fitchburg people, how many of you are aware that this observatory once appeared on the state shield, or not the state shield, the city shield of your police department? What is that? That's that observatory. Fitchburg used it at least for the police department. I don't know what else they might have used it for. I made a couple of calls to City Hall back when I was researching this, because I was researching the history of the Madison Astronomical Society, and I wasn't able to reach anybody who remembered anything about this. But Fitchburg once embraced this observatory to the degree that they put kind of a caricature of it on publications, citywide publications. Fitchburg can do this again. This observatory, after sitting idle for years and years and years, is undergoing renovation right now in something that I can't say much about, but you're going to be hearing announcements about this in the coming weeks and months. Astrotourism is a potential angle that you might want to think about when you consider what you're planning to do with respect to how you light your streets and how you light your city. This could, in fact, be a really, really good thing for the city of Fitchburg and a model for the rest of Dane County. And I'll leave you with a Vincent van Gogh quote. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, John. So the city owns the observatory, or is it Promega? I forgot that.
Well, at one time, I believe it was in Fitchburg's hands. I'm not really sure how it changed hands after the Bjorkson laboratories closed, before Promega took over so much real estate down there. It's definitely on Promega property now, and Promega has demonstrated their ownership of it pretty definitely. Yeah, Diane?
I have a couple questions. I noticed when you did the map of the world, Australia doesn't show any light pollution. So what do you know what they're doing?
Well, most of Australia's population is clustered on the east coast and down to the southern coast, where Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide are. Australia is very, very desolate, remote wilderness desert in the center of the country. So their population is distributed much, much differently than the United States or Europe's population is. But it is true that most of Australia is pristine, classical, dark sky territory. But if you get to Sydney, Melbourne, and the other large cities, they're just as light polluted as we are. Their population is only about 20 million people, as opposed to our 330 million, and theirs is all very densely clustered along the coasts.
Also, two other questions. The map that you showed of the Madison area, that includes the lakes show as if there are lights going on in the lake. So was this just like a linear map that they connected the dots and it happened to go over the lakes?
Well, without getting too deeply into how the map was generated, if we were to go back to the first illustration, you can see that to the north, Lake Lake Mendota is darker, to the north of the lake. So you can see the effect of the light drop off. The problem is the lakes are relatively small and the amount of light spilled by the city of Madison around them is very, very great. So yeah, the light pollution does extend well out into the lakes. Those maps were generated by gathering data points of basically what comes down to straight overhead, readings taken straight overhead, the amount of illumination at the zenith, the point directly over your head. And those values were estimated by satellite measurements of the kind of light pollution you saw from the actual satellite photos. So, Lake Mendota is only about 3 or 4 miles wide, not wide enough to see a great drop off as you get to the center of the lake because you're still only a couple of miles from downtown Madison.
Okay, one final question. In general, then, are LED lights better than halogen or traditional?
Yeah, better than almost any kind of incandescent light, better than fluorescent lights, better than the high and low pressure sodium lights. The reason is that LED lights are much, much lower power consumption. So you can get the same amount of light with LED lights for about 1/5 the power consumption, and therefore about 1/5 the dollar investment. And LED lights can be tuned to a much narrower emission band of the electromagnetic spectrum. So you can really specifically get a nice warm, people really like that warm kind of orangey yellowish light at night rather than the harsh blues that you get from a lot of fluorescents. We don't have very many fluorescent fixtures anymore, but the ones that you do have in your offices and so forth are just a garish blue, an uncomfortably garish blue. So LEDs can be tuned a little bit more easily. They last a lot longer and they consume a lot less power.
Do you find that they're more kind of directionally narrowed too? I feel like some of the conversation is around kind of angle of shine and how much it, and I think of an incandescent bulb as kind of going in every direction, whereas I think of an LED as being kind of more of a directed cone because of it coming out of the diode. Do you feel like that kind of assists in this idea of keeping the light kind of down as well?
I think LED lights kind of lend themselves just for that reason to better lighting. It's possible to have a flat LED. In fact, by nature, the diodes are flat. People will put them on curved surfaces to imitate incandescent bulbs and other kinds of bulbs. But I think just by nature of the light source, a lot of the LED fixtures have been better shielded than their incandescent predecessors, just because of the nature, the physical nature of the light source. That's the good thing. The bad thing is because LEDs are low power consumption, people think, oh, we can make them brighter and still save money. And so a lot of LED fixtures have just sort of come out of the box being a lot brighter than they need to be. And again, that's why it's good to have people giving it some thought at your stage of the game before the purchases have been made. Gabriella.
Yeah, so that speaks right to my next question. I was really happy to hear about this LED because we just approved, authorized the potential to spend a pot of money to help us transition to LEDs. And I know Phil Groupie, who's here, has also applied for grant funding to transition all of our street lighting and potentially park lighting as well to LEDs. And so the question came up about are LEDs better? Aren't they bluish and not warm glow? So this is all this answers are really helpful. But I guess my next question is kind of more directed to Phil and maybe Bill. Do we have like an internal policy of when we do start installing those lights? Are we going to have them by nature have that warm glow, have more of the directionality to think about dark sky ordinance? Or is it important that we make some of those policy decisions in anticipation of, very soon being able to switch those over to LEDs?
Good question. Typically what our policy has been is like in a commercial area, we have applied more of a white light or the 4000 K lighting standard. And then in residential areas, we've applied a 3000 K just because it's kind of a softer light in those areas. But that's generally what we have been applying. And we do order all of our LEDs with dimmable drivers so that we would be able to dim those down in the future if we were to get a communication package where we could communicate with all those lights.
Am I correct, Bill? This also mostly applies to, and this is something we've talked about before with the grant that I applied for in January, that there's kind of 3 different buckets of streetlights that the city has. There are some that we own and maintain. Those are actually metered so that we're paying on a per kilowatt hour used basis. There are some that we own and the utility maintains, and those ones we just kind of pay a flat rate per light. And then there are some that the utility owns and maintains. Most of our policies have to do with the ones that we own and manage. So like we've been pushing all of those over to LEDs, but the lights that technically we own but the utility maintains, because we're not paying a per kilowatt hour rate on those, the incentive has not been the same to transition those. So those ones we're trying to get some grant funding to actually get those lights converted to LED. And
is the utility in Madison that gas and electric?
I think all of our streetlights are MG&E. I don't think Alliant has any of those.
Just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
Phil, is there a breakdown on the percentage of that? That's what the city owns versus the other 2 options?
There is, and I'd have to look it up unless Bill knows off the top of his head. I think it's something like 30 or 40% that we own and maintain, and another 50 that the utility maintains, and the remaining are owned by the utility. But to get the exact numbers, I'd have to look it up.
Okay.
I'm just curious, like to John, like, are there best practices for transitioning city streetlights to LEDs that exist, like some policy papers or things that have like really what the best practice would be if we were to when we do this eventually? Because hopefully it's near term when we will do this.
Yeah, so not my area of strength, but again, I would point you to Tucson because Tucson has gotten this question a lot in the last couple of years, as other cities have done the same thing. And I expect Utah is at or close to that point. So the references that I'll send to Ron, so Ron can share them with the whole group, will include potentially some answers to that question, and certainly some people that you or your colleagues could reach out to via email or phone. I'll point to darksky.org. That's the International Dark Sky Association's website. Darksky.org has a ton of information aimed directly at city councils who are grappling with the kind of questions that you are, all the way from frequently asked questions kind of things to model ordinances that have been written by experts and adopted to some degree or another by many different state and local municipalities across the country. Not enough. We need more. So good for you guys for thinking about this.
So Bill, on those streetlights that we're going to be getting, are those the kind that have the shield on top so the light just goes down?
Yeah, they're all dark sky compliant. There's the different ratings you have for glare and glow and different things, but from my understanding is that they all meet that standard.
Great, good, thanks.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Bill.
Do you happen to know, Bill? I know this is one that Andrew and I were struggling a little bit as we were looking into the grant, or John, I don't know if you'd have an answer to this, but John, you mentioned the Cobra fixtures, and those ones, it seems like it's a little bit more difficult to find a dark sky compliant replacement for those without doing more modifications to the lamppost itself.
Yeah, I'm not, yeah, I don't know. You know, when you get down to the nuts and bolts and the details like that, I just don't have any experience. But that's got to be a problem that's been addressed by many, because those Cobra heads are everywhere, you know, in the millions.
Actually, I
Okay,
should check and make sure. No, the Cobras, it was a different one. I'm mistaken anyway. The Cobras are good.
okay. Any more questions for John? We're just a little bit behind schedule, so I want to get us back on track. I do appreciate the presentation, John. It was really good and informative, and kind of give us a head start, or gives us a leap into what we want to do next, is hopefully adopt or get a dark sky ordinance for the city, which is next on our agenda. And if you have a few minutes, if you want to hang on during that discussion, that would be great.
Will do. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions for John? If not, we can move to agenda item, oops, back over here to 4E, the Dark Sky Ordinance. One of the things I have, after talking with John and, seeing his presentation and kind of reviewing some of the things that have been done in our area, I know the city of Verona has a Dark Sky Ordinance. The Shorewood Hills up in the Madison area, they have a Dark Sky Ordinance. I think the city of Madison has some type of a lighting ordinance, but it's not really a dark sky ordinance. But no, I'm going through just doing a Google review. I know there's a lot of cities and small towns are starting to develop and implement a dark sky ordinance within their boundaries. And I think it's something that we should look forward to and push for. Gabriella, I'm not sure, and Bill, what is the process of bringing or putting together an ordinance and bringing it together and put it before council? I mean, is there homework that we have to do in terms of our part to look at our existing conditions? And do we have to, say, well, if we go down this road, if we do this, there'll be a savings of, approximately X number of dollars. I'm not sure what the process of what we have to do to get an ordinance adopted or move through the council. I don't know if you could shed some light on that.
I mean, I can just jump in terms of the tree protection ordinance, and that's the only thing I've had personal hand in developing an ordinance, but they can be generated. An ordinance that's going to be adopted by the city can be generated by a lot of people. It can be generated internally by staff. It could be proposed by the mayor. It could be proposed by council members. And then I think it also can be worked on in committee, which then is sponsored either by the mayor or council members to come forward for a vote at council. So for the tree protection ordinance, that's been an ongoing discussion with tree advisory, where we have one person that's leading it and doing some of putting together the drafts. And then Anna Healy, the person that staffs that meeting, has been going back and forth and helping with adopting the drafts. And then it's a matter of, we've also been talking to plan department and our city attorney and others to kind of start figuring out where the pain parts are, where we're going to have to figure out how to construct it so it's something that can pass. So that's been a long ongoing discussion in tree advisor, but we meet less frequently than RCC, so it's been a little bit harder to move it forward. We just don't have that many meetings. But I would think, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Bill or Phil, I would think that it would just start with finding a draft or an example and start building a draft to take a look at. And then we can figure out from there what changes might need to be made to make it targeted for Fitchburg.
Yeah, that was essentially what I did. So last year I worked with the bike committee to change, essentially strike an ordinance in the books that had to do with mandatory bicycle registrations. It was just kind of an outdated ordinance that wasn't even really being enforced anymore. The process for writing it is relatively straightforward. As Gabriella discussed, I think what would take the most work would be if we're going to introduce a dark sky ordinance, I think we'd want to make sure that that it is well crafted, that it's the argument for it is tight, and that there's solid research behind it, because absolutely it would get at a bare minimum questions. It's a pretty big change that we'd want to make sure we have good justification behind it, and have thought through potential concerns and how those could be managed. So that's really, I think, where the most work would come into this is really putting in solid research and just ensuring that any potential concerns are addressed before we get to presenting it to council.
So Phil, would that be somebody from the city that would do that research, or is it something that, members on the commission can do, or?
I think that could be cooperative.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't looked at Dark Sky Ordinances, so I'd be interested to kind of dig into that. What is that website? Dark Sky?
Darksky.org.
That's just see what the examples are, but I would imagine that, I have to imagine that there are differences where there are probably some ordinances that control city policy. So obviously we can put our own ordinances for what we do for city lighting, but I imagine that maybe there are also ordinances that give guidance to new developments, or, you know what I mean? I feel like there's a difference between internal city policy for what we do with our infrastructure versus mandating external entities.
Yeah, Gabriella, that was going to be my question, is would that be something we would look at for new development? And then what about existing development, in terms of getting them to switch over? I know that in our neighborhood, we have a lot of, newer development with buildings in our neighborhood. And we've had to oftentimes talk to them about turning down the lights at night, just because of, the light that shines in our back windows. So I think that would be something that would be interesting to look at as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, are there other process, not just to keep having regulations and ordinances adopted? There are other ways that we can encourage people voluntarily to do this, like, the Edgewood College, the new developments going out on Lacey and off of Lacey and Seminole. They've identified that they're going to put in dark sky compliant lighting in that area. Is there a way that we can encourage new development and people to start doing that without having to have this, ordinance out there that forces people to do things? Seems like to me that might be a better way to go to get things done. I don't know, any thoughts or?
Yeah, I'd be interested in it. I imagine that some of those policies might have some sort of incentive structure. I feel like I feel like we just need to dig into some of the specifics.
I mean, I don't know if there's any existing ordinance that we have that we could, modify to include that in there. Like a new development that, when a new development goes in, lights have to be dark sky compliant. So.
It seems to me when a development puts in streetlights, since the development doesn't pay for the electricity on that, the city ends up paying for it. So I think it should be relatively easy for the city to require dark sky compliant lighting. And maybe I noticed that the town of Verona grandfathered non-compliant lights in. I think we would have to discuss that or somehow help get them transferred. But if the city is responsible for them or pays for them, and for the streetlights, that's almost all of them, except maybe private streets, right?
Yeah, I know that within the development code, I have to research that more, but we do require, certain lighting requirements in there for being dark sky compliant. And they have to submit a lighting plan, and especially in the new smart code areas in chapter 23, those areas are specific. They have specific lighting requirements that address that. But the older codes for subdivisions, I don't think we do it anyway, but I'm not sure that we have an actual ordinance that says this is what you need to do.
So then this would I guess this would apply a dark sky ordinance. At least what I'm thinking, when I go past Leopold School at night, I'm stunned at the amount of light that's on their parking lot. And especially considering Madison has supposedly a dark sky ordinance in place. So I think with Fitchburg, if we already have street lighting that's supposed to be dark sky compliant, then maybe our direction is for private property, like the the churches and the schools and the businesses, places like that.
Mhm.
I mean, it saves them money. So in the end, it should save them money. I don't know what the payback is, but I think we have to sell it first. We have to sell it basically on how it saves money and how it's good for the environment.
Yeah, Phil, I mean, I guess my next question is sort of for Phil. Like, you are a very busy staff member, but we'd certainly need a staff person to kind of help guide this, even if some of the bulk of the work is happening amongst the committee members. But I guess I just wonder if, I could reach out to maybe Valerie and I don't know, maybe the planning department to see if they have a sense of where we should start and who we should talk to and what ordinances we currently have that we should pull, or is that something that you can take on internally, or you want the chair to do it?
Yeah, I think it would probably be wise to start with a little bit of a fact-finding mission like you're describing, and that may mean talking with Valerie and with a few department heads and maybe Chad, just to get a sense of if there are any other ordinances we should look at, either as a model or that could even present risk of any kind of conflicting city policy with this, but then also just to get a sense from them of where they think the biggest hurdles might be that we need to look into. I think Diana's right that putting out some messaging on this would be a stronger play. If it kind of we spring it up on people and it catches them off guard, more likely to get a little bit of pushback. But I know that was it Ron, you were planning to write an article for the Fitchburg Star about this, and some messaging along those lines could help to bring a little bit more awareness before it comes forward. But at least on our end, Gabriella, yeah, I think that speaking with some people internally would be a good start.
I mean, Phil, is there a counterpart at the city of Verona that you could talk to, your counterpart, or maybe understand how they did their process?
Yeah, there are a couple of people at Verona that I know and could speak to.
Okay, maybe that might be useful to find out, what they went through.
Mm-hmm.
And Phil, are you okay getting that ball rolling, or do you want I could reach out to Chad and connect him with Ron to start the conversation? Whatever. I just want to make sure that we have a next step, and I don't necessarily want to. I can help if you don't have the capacity to do it yourself.
I definitely can send out an email this week. At least I have capacity for that. I'll tone down my wordsmithing tendency a little bit there. But yeah, I can get an email sent this week and try to get a meeting set up.
Yeah, and maybe Ron, maybe you can be the.
I'd be more than happy to help out however I can. So,
Bill, where are we on filling the staff position? Because it seems to me this really falls under Public Works. It's nice of Phil to get things rolling a little bit, but it seems to me that this is a Public Works item.
It is kind of a buildings and grounds, but it does fall mainly in the planning area, I would think, because of all the development and the subdivisions that's overseen there, all the different codes. I was just looking through all the different codes in Google, streetlights within the city ordinances, and it's all over the place in planning. So it's there's a lot of cleanup, and it's going to impact a big area. So I think, if we went through and, talk to Chad about, we'd like to get an ordinance together, and then, by talking to Phil and planning and Public Works, we would have to figure out what resources that we would need to put into this to come up with a dark sky ordinance. It might be just, taking the city of Verona's, and it fits in just great. They've done all the legwork for us, but we do need to do that research and try to figure out what impacts it has on our current ordinances and development, and then, be able to implement that through the community.
We're about 20 minutes behind schedule.
Okay. Well, we should, unless there's any other discussion, we should move on. I think we can make up on some of the things on the agenda. Again, thank you, John, for your presentation and listening to our discussion. And I'll keep you updated to how things are going on. And if you can keep us updated what goes on at the observatory, that would be great.
I will. Thank you, guys.
All right,
John,
thank
I
you.
really appreciate all the effort that you and research that you put into doing that presentation. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Diane. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Okay, so let's move on to agenda item 4E, June Bring Your Own Bag event. It has me there, but to Diane, it seems like this is something that you've been kind of championing. And do you have any ideas what would be planned around this, or what would the city would do? Oh, you're on mute, Diane.
All right. I'll tell you what we've done in the past, and as far as I know, nothing has been done for this year. Nothing is in place, but in the past, either Chris or I or both of us have talked to like the manager of a grocery store or wherever we've had it. We've had it at Pick and Save. We've had an event, and we've had a couple events at Hy-Vee. Both of those stores have new managers since we did the events, but we talked to them and arranged a time to do it. Saturdays tend to be the best, Saturday mornings. If we do, I notice on the agenda, you have it down for June, which that obviously would not interfere with football, but sometimes we do it in the fall, and then we just have to watch for football Saturdays, and then we move it to a Sunday instead. So we do it maybe for 2 hours. I think Kim has still a lot of, Dairy Queen was very nice to help us out and give people, the last one that we did, I think, was at Pick and Save, and the people who participated or who brought their own bag, actually, we rewarded them by giving them a coupon for a free, I think it was a free ice cream cone at Dairy Queen or something like that. When we had it at Hy-Vee, the store manager arranged for a nice generous coupon for I think $5 off a $15 purchase or something like that, and printed those out. So the purpose of this is to raise awareness of the plastic bag problem, and we have laminated pictures that we put up on a board that we borrow from community development, which raises people's awareness about the problems with plastic bags. And then the people, we advertise this in the Star that we're having it, and the people who bring their own bag, then we give them a reward for doing that. Like I said, a Dairy Queen gift certificate, or depending on the store, if the store manager wants to provide something, and it's been extremely well received. The Hy-Vee place we did 2 years in a row. This is pre-pandemic, and people remembered us from the previous year. So, but like I said, I don't think anything has been done for June, and I think that June might be a little bit early, considering, I don't know, I'm still a little bit uncomfortable with COVID going around and the numbers starting to pop up, that people want to be in close contact and handling things. So.
And just full disclosure here, Diane, this was on the calendar of events from previous year. So June is not, we're not locked into that or anything. That's just a month we had done recently. So it's not mandatory here.
Yeah, we haven't done one since the pandemic started. So 2.5 years, 3 years. But it's the whole purpose is to reduce people's use of plastic bags. And I can't remember exactly when Pick and Save's parent company is Roundy's, and Roundy's said that they were going to phase out plastic bags. So we thought this was perfect to partner with them. And that's why we had the last one at Pick and Save.
Well, I think it's a great idea, and I think we should do another one. And Diane, who takes like the lead to reach out to the store manager or Dairy Queen to find out what they can offer and explain what we're doing for that specific day? I mean,
well, primarily Chris. I think I can't remember on Pick and Save. I don't, it might have been me. It might have been Chris. Chris has taken the lead on Hy-Vee for sure. So, and if anybody's got a contact, like if anybody knows the manager at Target or any of the area grocery stores, it doesn't have to be a grocery store. It could also be, well, and let's see, we don't have any Shopkos anymore. We don't have any we don't have any Kohl's in Fitchburg, but it should be a Fitchburg store. But you know, like Home Depot or something like that. It could be any place like that.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I kind of like the idea of maybe moving it to later in the fall. I mean, if it's something that's done like on a Sunday morning before the football games come on, I always notice there's a lot of people in the store at those time periods picking up their food and beer and drinks to get ready for the football game. So it might be a larger audience that we could reach out to, you know, on a Sunday morning in November or October.
Well, usually keep in mind that we're usually standing outside. I noticed that Tony has joined us, and Tony was great with helping with the bring your own bag events at Hy-Vee. Saturday mornings, if it's not a home football game, if it's an away game, Saturday mornings are also extremely popular, but it's outside. So, you know, if you get into November, you may have some weather problems. We've been really fortunate. We haven't run into rain, but I would say September or October at the very latest.
Okay. Well, I think it's something that we should pursue further. I mean, I don't know who here would want to take the lead on that. So any volunteers? I mean, you said Chris took the lead on it last time, and you and Kim have been working on them. So,
I guess I'll just touch base with Chris and see what his thoughts are on it, and see if he want just get some feedback from him, and maybe we can add this to the next agenda when we, let's see, this is March. I guess that would be May. Discuss that a little bit more.
okay.
Yeah, and it might be something, I know
good.
in the past, the outreach committee helped, you know, get the word out about the events. And I know Sharon, who's on our outreach committee, also has been active. So Diane, when you talk with Chris, maybe ask him if this is something that would fall under the outreach committee as well, depending on if there's other things that our outreach committee would be working on.
I definitely falls, in my opinion, under outreach, but yeah, I'll ask him and see what he thinks about it.
Thank you, Diane. I mean, I think this is a great idea, and I think we should continue this. So
Wait till you see the laminated pictures that we have.
okay, if there's not any more discussion on the bring your own bag event, we can move on to item 4F. That's a discussion of 2023 to 2027 capital improvement budget requests. I'll turn it over to you, Bill and Tony.
I think there might be some public comments on that. I don't know if we want to do that first.
Oh, okay, yeah. Tony has.
There you go. Just wanted to unmute. I wasn't expecting to go first on this, but I can, I guess, speak to it with maybe help from Gabrielle. I know you have in the CIP, Gabriella, several initiatives to get more solar on what we call in the industry loads, basically consumption that the city has. Some years ago, before many of you, well, I want to say that Diane and Kim, first of all, should have lifetime achievement awards for still being on the Resource Conservation Commission. But I welcome certainly Joshua and Will and I guess the other person I don't know was Ron, and but I know very well, and I guess the rest of you know that this is sort of an ongoing passion for me, and as it is for many of you, and I preach to the choir on this stuff. But Gabrielle has been great picking up the torch on the policy side, making sure that this stuff stays in front of the decision makers. And the person that I mentioned before, Erica Klutmeyer, started to predates Phil at least by 2 or 3 sustainability specialists. But she at one time looked at all the different points of consumption within the city and started to look at the I guess, prioritize or look for the low hanging fruit. And this is where some of the wells were better than others. They all consume a lot of electricity, but they don't all have a lot of land around them or rooftops to put solar on. I think we already hit some of the low hanging fruit back during my time on the council, which ended about 3 years ago. But, I continue to work in the solar industry, have for the last 6 years, and have been doing projects all over Wisconsin. I'll just tell you briefly that the group I work with is the Legacy Solar Cooperative. We have actually been a consultant to the city. And in fact, that's why I work with them today, because when I was on the council, I found out that they had been engaged, and we are the economic alternative to expensive engineers, because solar ain't that tricky, you guys. And it pays for itself usually in 10 years or less, which is awesome. And I just want to put in a plug for everything that's coming and something that's in the budget for this year. I guess technically it's still in the CIP, but I'm pretty sure Gabriella got her mates on the council to vote in about $50,000 for the lift station over in Terra Vesa, the only one that Fitchburg currently owns. But I know I've walked her through that over there. I've talked to Tracy Foss, I've talked to Bill very recently, and to Chad Brecklin about this project. But the fact is there's enough money already in the budget for this year. I know that the city is terribly short-staffed. I've made the offer to work for peanuts to see this thing through, but I think the city could do this for that $50,000 or less. And the stars are aligning, because MG&E will reimburse the city at full retail for anything that gets fed back onto the grid. And there's a perfect space behind that lift station to daisy chain pole mounted solar. I don't know if you want me to show some photos of it or if Gabriella wants to describe it, but I think it's almost a perfect opportunity to do it. And it will offset the majority of the power there today and for the foreseeable future. Although I have to say that as Terra Vesa gets completely filled up, it may be that, at some point you'll still be buying a considerable amount of electricity from MG&E, but the city, as with all the not-for-profits that I tend to work with, gets to own this generation. It's the best deal going out there. And I've been working in clean energy for 20 plus years now, and nothing beats solar for the economics. And, you've got a number of very qualified local installers right here in Dane County that could do this project in less than 2 weeks, once they got their crews out there. So it wouldn't take long. There's permitting and a setup time. And clearly Phil and Bill and Tracy would have to be convinced that this is a good project. But I think it's almost a no-brainer, or as our former mayor used to say, the proverbial 2-foot putt. So I hope that this one goes through, and then the ones at the wells get hard looks in the next year or two. As I don't know, Gabrielle, maybe you can speak to when you have them in the CIP.
Yeah, I mean, I guess and Bill obviously can comment on this too, but last year I added some language for future wells and pumps that are in the CIP to have solar be a part of the consideration, but I haven't touched the other wells and pumps because based on my conversation with Phil, there had been some analysis done with Tracy in the Public Works Department that the other wells and pumps were not good candidates for solar at this point in time. But if that is being rethought, I would certainly be interested.
Sure. Well, I can just tell you that the great thing about MG&E, and not all the big public utilities are this good to work with, but they only true up once a year. So that means that they're looking at your, consumption, your purchases versus what you're putting back onto the grid once per year. So you can overproduce during the day, you can overproduce during the summer months. As long as you're a net purchaser at the end of the year, you get a full 100% reimbursement of credit at the exact same amount of money that you pay for kilowatt hours. So this is why up to 20 kilowatts AC, which is something like 25 kilowatts DC, is just the perfect project to do right now. Like I said, the stars are aligned for the cities to get maximum benefit right now. And there is money available from Focus on Energy from a program called Array It Forward, which would pay for us to help with it, matching grants there for small amounts, $500 to $1,000. And then Focus on Energy, Solar for Good is a program where they actually donate panels to any nonprofit, including governments in Wisconsin. So this is a great time to do these projects. And, I can also send you, Bill, or Gabriella, or I guess Will is chair of the SHEC, and send you some of these renderings and photos if, to try to keep you guys on schedule tonight.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, I will do that, or I can show them to you. Let me know. I don't know if do you guys share screens?
I'll defer to Ron on that one. If you.
Yeah, we're behind, so let's go ahead and move forward. Bill, do you have more discussion on this topic? We've got it in the meeting minutes.
Yeah.
Not meeting minutes, on the agenda.
Yeah, not on the solar part, but it is kind of related to it. And that's kind of electric vehicles is something that, we're kind of branching into, getting our feet wet with, purchasing an electric vehicle, either plug-in or hybrid. And the first question I asked was, where are we going to plug this thing in? And how many vehicles are we going to have, and where should we house them, and what kind of infrastructure do we need to start planning for, long-term at our facilities? So, the police station and city hall are up for, inspection in the next few years, or renovations at city hall. So that's something that I'd really like to work, with the group on is to determine, what our fleet needs are, where we should house these vehicles, things like that. It's something that I think that we should at least, start looking at over the next year or so that we can get that in our capital planning for buildings at least. So that's something that is on my radar to start looking at. We did I am updating the CIP for stormwater for quite a few of the grants that we've been successful at. The congressional discretionary spending was part of Senator, begins with a P. You remember, Gabriella, which one that is? That's a Senator Powell. Anyway, one of our senators managed to put through a bill of $842,000.
I think it was Baldwin, Tammy Baldwin.
Yep. And
It's a B.
yeah. So so we're updating, those grants, the costs and things like that that we can use this money for, and then the bipartisan infrastructure bill. We've applied for grants for those, DNR. So we've got a lot of grants that we've been writing. Unfortunately, we don't have the staff to get things going right now to get them implemented. And we are in the process of, hiring a full-time, part-time, and and technician still. So I'm kind of trying to hold it together and juggling the balls right now. But a lot of the stormwater infrastructure, I'm just updating prices, applying the grants that we're getting, and going forward with that. I don't know if there's any projects you've kind of discussed over the past year that we need to, introduce in this CIP. I'm more than happy to put something together in the next couple of weeks if you got ideas on something that was discussed, or hey, we should probably do this or that. Just let me know about those, and I can get those into the budget.
Bill, I have a couple of things. First of all, appreciate you willing to submit CIP things. I think we discussed those at the last meeting, and Gabrielle has that base covered. So, but thank you for the offer. On your comment about the electric vehicle, and I know that we're running late, so just quickly, why would we house those any differently than we would regular vehicles?
A lot of the vehicles that we house would be outside, and that really, cuts down on the battery. I don't know enough about electric vehicles to say it's a good thing or a bad thing to house your vehicle outside, but I know it gets pretty cold and it cuts down the battery life. And I don't know if that would, reduce the long-term lifespan of a vehicle. So do we need to look at doing them inside, or do we do a heated booth outside? Do we make a warehouse? I don't know what the best answer for that is, but, I just want to make sure we get the best bang for our buck when we do buy these vehicles.
Thanks.
And if we had a significant electric fleet, you would want plugins, like a array of plugins that are efficient, I would think. So I'm really excited that you are looking at that for the CIP bill. That's
That's great.
music to my ears. Thank you. One other question though I have, because I guess this is kind of Phil. When I was talking about the CIP amendments last year about solar panels, about wells, lift and pumps, we had some conversations about the need for battery power because of the intermittent nature of wells and pumps. Makes solar not as good of a candidate. But based on what Tony was saying about MG&E just evening up at the end of the year, it sounds like that might be kind of a moot point, just given how our utility works. Is that something that
it may be. So I need to look into the billing a little further. The once a year true up and net seller detail is one that I wasn't familiar with. So that certainly would be different than how our agreement with MG&E operates for the O'Brien Renewable Energy Rider. So on that one, it's actually on a monthly basis. They're crediting us at a different rate depending on whether we're using more than or generating more than we're using. So for the Renewable Energy Rider, if we're generating more than we're actually using, whatever we use is credited at our retail rate. Whatever is over generated and just goes back into the grid, we're only credited at the retail rate that MG&E would purchase it from the market, which is like 8 or 10 cents less per kilowatt hour. For net metering, if that's different, then that's something I'm just not as up to speed on as I should be. So I got to look into that. But that would make a difference, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll share with you and say goodbye to everybody for now, but thanks for having me briefly. And if you ever want a longer conversation, happy to come back and look forward to catching up. And thanks for everybody doing the heavy lifting, because this is good work.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony. Yeah, thank you.
I'll help you again, Diane, to hand out bags. That's the most fun.
Good. Thanks, Tony.
Good to see you, Tony.
Bye, guys.
Hi, Tony, and thank you again.
Take care.
All right. Any more discussion on the CIP?
Bill, I definitely have some ideas, but I was looking at them more from an amendment perspective because I feel I have to do some more research, and I don't want to put that on you. So,
well, that's fine. You know, if I have time to get them in there, you know, I can help you out with those, and then they would be a discussion on the floor rather than, you know, doing an amendment.
Great.
It just seems like the timing is a little more compressed, you know, when we do amendments, and you don't have to.
Yeah. I'll maybe write some of this up, and I might touch base with you afterward.
Sounds great.
All right. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Gabriella. Let's move on to item number 5A, agenda item, old business, the shred recycling event. Phil, you want to give us an update on that? I know it's coming up here soon. So I hear a lot of people in our neighborhood talking about it when I'm out on walks. So I was kind of surprised. So people are aware of it.
Yeah, so I should pull up the maps here. It's something that we're all pretty familiar with from at least the fall event, but still just a little reminder, we're doing the shred recycling event next week on Saturday, as you all know, since I sent out the call for volunteers. Thanks everybody who is able to help with that. We still could use a couple more volunteers. If any of you know anybody who'd be interested in participating, we've got, I think, 7 right now, but 2 can't be there the whole time. So if we could get 2 to 4 more. We're using, as you can see here, the same map we used in the fall. So the paper shredding and electronics recycling line will start down here where we had Kim directing traffic, bring them both in this further east on Lacey entrance, and then split into shredding and electronics recycling up this way. Have the med drop at the police station again. What I would like to do based on some feedback from our vendors is, I think we had a good number of volunteers for helping with the shredding and the electronics recycling, but it would be nice to have a couple more volunteers kind of helping to remind drivers sort of at some of these key points, directions. So I was kind of walking around in the fall trying to manage traffic a little bit. Kim had this locked down at the entrance, but we definitely had some people who were trying to come from med drop in this way. We had a few people trying to sort of cut in from paper shredding into the electronics recycling line here, and it got a little messy at some points. So that's kind of the big change that we're hoping to see for the spring. With Dakota out on parental leave, it'll be me and Bill. I don't know if you're able to help with this next Saturday, or if I should look to get any other staff to help just kind of set up with this. It'll be the
Yeah, I can help you out, and I can get my son to help out too. So
that'd be great.
If I can get him up.
I won't hold my breath.
Well, I don't know if I actually ever officially volunteered, but I can come as well. And I'll send you an email to that. And I can email Parks Commission and Tree Advisory and the council to see if anyone from that group would be willing to jump in for a volunteer opportunity.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Same here, Phil. I can't remember if I volunteered or not, but I can be available. So.
I don't remember if you did, but I wrote you down. So we'll say that that's because you emailed me.
Good.
Phil, do we know how many people Pelletieri is providing?
Pelletieri, I believe, is still not providing anybody because of as long as the pandemic is still ongoing. So we still need 4 of our volunteers there to load the carts.
Well, that's what they said last year, but they had three guys there.
Yeah. 3 guys, 2 trucks.
So I guess to be more precise, I did ask our Pelletieri rep about this, and Jeff didn't say they wouldn't bring anybody. He just said that we needed 4 volunteers to help with the carts.
Okay.
So it may be the exact same setup as we had in November.
Okay.
But he encouraged 4 volunteers there. I think we ended up having 3 at electronics recycling, which seemed like a really good number there. And then a couple people helping with traffic, and then 1 or 2 that are just sort of walking around floating, seeing what needs to be done. So kind of gets us up to right around 9 or 10 total would be ideal.
Are you going to send out a schedule of who's helping where?
I sure can.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Well, if people want to volunteer, they email you directly, Phil. Should I put your email in the?
Yes, that would be great.
Great. I will get those emails out.
And
Ron, how did your neighbors find out about this? Was there a mailing to them? Oh, did you get a mailing again?
I got a mailing. Oh yeah, what Gabrielle is holding up. I got a mailing. Yeah.
Wow.
That same one.
They seem to skip this part of the city. We've
Yeah,
never gotten a mailing.
Yeah, I think we got the same one.
They did bring 50 of those to City Hall, and I set them up by the front desk and in the lobby. But I'm also probably going to put a stack at. It looks like not many of those have been taken, so I'm going to put a stack over at the library on Monday as well, if Wendy is okay with that.
Could you also send a PDF of that to us so we know what it says? Because sometimes people have questions about, do they take this? Do they take that?
Sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep, I'll do that. And I'll note some of the things that were called out from the fall. One of the most notable ones for paper shredding was apparently a number of people brought their papers in binders, and we're trying to put 3-ring binders in the carts, which is not something they take. And a lot of people tried batteries, and Resource Solutions was very adamant that they're not doing any battery collection this year.
I thought we paid them to take batteries last year.
Both ends have to be taped. Everything has to be taped up. And so the challenge was people were just bringing loose bags of batteries. And if electrodes on them are exposed, if they were all taped up, they were willing to take them. But if electrodes were exposed and they weren't packaged, which I mean is very specific, right? Nobody's coming with that preparation.
And so that slowed things down
Actually,
probably.
Josh, that's how the city collected batteries to recycle before. And then when the city stopped collecting them, we arranged for that to be included in the electronics recycling, but maybe we need to do a better job of educating people that they'll take the batteries, but both ends need to be taped. And if they're not taped, they won't be accepted.
And that's possible. The contract that we have with Resource Solutions for this event specifically says batteries and light bulbs are not accepted. So that's something we can talk about for future events. But for this one, they explicitly are asking people not to bring bulbs or batteries. And on the flyer as well, it looks like.
Oh, is this in reverse? Are you saying?
Nope, I can read it.
Also, Phil, just an FYI, Pelletieri has never accepted 3-ring binders, papers in 3-ring binders. So that
correct.
People were doing that. They're just not paying attention.
Yeah, that wasn't so much a comment on our advertising or anything like that. It was just hoping that we could make it a little bit more explicit because some people were still showing up with them.
Okay.
And it sounded like, again, that just slowed things down.
I think we allowed money in our budget request for battery recycling. So I think we put in the same amount as the previous year. So maybe in the fall, we can arrange and educate people that they need to tape both ends.
Yeah, that would be something to look into. See if we can, if it's feasible to get it back at this event, or if we just need to look at, I mean, there are also a lot of, retail locations around the area that accept batteries. So that's also an option for people. This might be more convenient, but it's far from the only avenue people have.
And that's one of the things when I've talked to people when they're coming in, if they ask if they're accepting batteries, I'll refer them to other locations where they're accepted. So I'll bring my little flyer too, because that's helpful when people ask, because a lot of times they just load whatever into their car to see what we'll take.
Phil, for the mention in the Star article, do we want, I'm putting the basic dates of time and place and that we're hosting it again as a reminder at the end of the article. Do we want to direct them to the city's website or anywhere else if they want additional information, like I guess kind of to find that flyer?
Yeah, I would say the city's website's best. If they go to the city's website and search for recycling event, and let me double check this as I'm describing it, but I believe if they search for either recycling event or shred event, the first result should get them the spring 2022. Yep. Yeah, if they search for either of those, recycling event, shred event, recycling day, it's the top result on the city site for all those.
All right, I'm going to say additional information can be found by searching for recycling event on the City of Fitchburg website.
Awesome, thanks. Am I correct that star will be coming out on the 8th, the day before?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Josh, I'm confused, Josh. I thought you were writing on native plantings.
I am, but I think because of the timing, we were trying to sneak in a reminder for this event just to get it in the Star at least a day in advance of the date. That was my memory, at least.
Well, that should be on the city page.
I can see if it can get in the newsletter and on the city page. Again, I did that for March, so we already had it on the city's page in March, and I can see if there's room for it again in April.
Yeah, okay. because it really doesn't. I appreciate you willing to do that, Josh, but it really doesn't fit with your article. But it could be on the city page. And speaking of the Star, related topic, the rain date for the Waterway cleanup in the last Star, the rain date preceded the actual cleanup date. I think that was just it didn't get corrected from a previous announcement.
Yeah, I thought I took the rain date out, so I'll have to look at that.
You know what? It just occurred to me that if someone wants to just write a letter to the editor about the recycling event, like just a quick reminder for people to go and look at the directions, that's something that one of us could just do as an individual.
That might be a place that people are, you may get some people who read those and don't look at, say, the city page notices. But yeah, so I will, Gabriella, if you can check in with council and the tree advisory committee to see if anybody else is willing to volunteer. I will send out probably early mid next week an email to all the volunteers, just kind of with a rundown of what times you said you'd be able to help and kind of the flyers and an overview of what's being collected and what's not this year.
So one other question, I noticed on your map, are you allowing parking for med drop by the police station? I think you have parking there.
Yes, so there was parking allowed there in the fall as well. So just those first 2 rows by the station and then up kind of between the station and the library. And I will talk with, I'll talk with a couple of officers and just make sure that that's okay. If we need to, we can always barricade that and just have them park directly across from the police station towards the library.
Okay, thanks.
Just make sure that they're okay with it.
All right, thank you, Phil. Let's move on to the next agenda item, spring waterway cleanup. Bill, are you still? Yep, Bill's still there.
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay.
Let's see. I got to try to find all my maps that I had up. I got the different maps for that Dakota had put out last year.
Mhm. Are you still looking for volunteers for that, Bill, to lead it certain areas? Because I'm more than happy to lead the area that I did last year.
Okay, well, what area was that?
It was over by Dunn's Pond area.
Okay.
Dunn's Marsh?
Dunn's Marsh, sorry, yeah, Dunn's
Yep.
Marsh. Thanks.
Yes. So we've got an area for Dunn's Marsh, Swan Creek, Yarmouth Greenway, and Quarry
Hill Park or Quarry
Yeah.
Hill. Yep.
Yep. And then the Fahey subdivision as well. So I think there's another area that people wanted to try to clean up on. Maybe, Will, you were thinking of a different area? Or Josh, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't see Will on here anymore. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, so I didn't have another area. Sorry.
Okay.
I think I was talking about McKee Farms. Can't remember if it was just north of there or the kind of
think
along
that-
the north edge of McKee Farms. Is that already included?
I think that's Yarmouth Greenway.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Bill,
can,
I'm still planning on getting over there before the golf course opens, by where they did their construction over the creek. That area was pretty bad 2 years ago, so I'm planning on doing that, but not on the day. I'll be gone the day that you all are doing your cleanup, so I'll do that at a different time.
So Bill, the date and time again, just to refresh.
good question.
It's the 24th.
It's toward the end of April.
Oh, right.
It's the 23rd,
Thank you.
from 9
And-
until 11.
11, yep, okay.
And so people will be picking up their supplies at City Hall?
Right.
The team
Okay.
leaders, I assume.
And then what are we doing for picking up, for the city to come by and pick up afterwards?
We're coordinating with the street supervisor to come by and pick those up afterwards at specific locations.
Okay. Do we have signs, Bill, like we've had in the past that says it's a waterway cleanup?
Wasn't aware of that. What kind of signs are they?
They're like, like those campaign signs that people stick in the yard. It was nothing terribly fancy like that, but it just, I know I think it was last year, some people were questioning bags of trash sitting along the road, and obviously they'd be sitting there from Saturday until Monday unless the city's picking them up on Saturday. That might be a good place to have the sign that it's a waterway cleanup. And I know when I've cleaned up along the creek that goes along Yarmouth Greenway, people will stop and ask me what I'm doing. So I think it just promotes the event.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I'll get those maps out and I'll tell you where all to pick up the boxes. And I'll see about finding those signs or making some up.
Bill, I'm not going to pick up anything. I'll just provide my own stuff.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Bill. Next on agenda item 5C, the 2022 annual event. That's planning to hold that right now on May 19th at 5:30. It will be an invasive species tour. Gabriella, I'm not sure if you reached out to someone in the Parks Department. We need to find a location that we can have that event at. It's scheduled at 5:30 on May 19th. We'll have a representative from the South Central Invasive Species Program lead the tour for us. We just need to identify an area where we can do that.
I'm sure that Anna Healy can comment on that. I mentioned it at our last tree advisory meeting, but I don't think the date and time was solid then. So she can help us identify a spot. Do you
Okay.
want to, could you
Okay.
like send me some of the details of that specific time, and I'll connect you with Anna and make sure we find a suitable location. Oh, is Ron frozen? I think we lost Ron.
In the last minutes from the last meeting, it says that, I don't mean to throw you under the bus, Kim, or call you out.
That's all
but-
right. You can throw me under the bus. I haven't done anything and I apologize. It keeps probably because I'm not involved in the event. So I probably should have never offered to do it. So I apologize. Because normally I follow through on anything I say I'm going to do. But if Gabriella has already reached out.
Yeah, I mentioned it at last tree advisory committee meeting, which was a few weeks ago, but Ron, I don't know if you heard what I said, and you cut out for a second, but if you could just send that information in an email to me, I'll connect you with Anna and just let her know that you need, and if there's anyone from the organization that needs to be looped in as well, if you want to just copy us on an email, I'll connect with Anna and I'll say,
Sure.
Can you pick a location, and we'll I'm sure she'll be able to. I think she already has ideas about where it could be. It's just a matter of getting it right in front of her. She's a wildly busy person, so sometimes she.
Okay.
Ron, how early do you want us to be there? And are we supposed to bring anything?
No, I don't think you need to bring anything, but I would like to be able to, like we did for the tree diversity event, to be able to reach out and provide like a drawing that we had before and a giveaway, if we can do that.
Well, usually that's something that the community outreach subcommittee will do. Maybe I'll just mention that to Chris in my email about the BYOB event.
Okay.
And they'll publicize the event.
Okay, good. That was my next question.
We definitely need the location so that they can get that done.
Yeah. And Diane, do you need like a flyer or something? Because I can make something up.
That would be great. That would be great. You can just send it to Chris, because usually Sharon Hanrahan, who you haven't met, she's just a whiz at getting things posted around the city. So that would be great, but we do need the location, and the sooner we can get it on the city's website, the better, to publicize that this is going on. There won't be any snow then. That'd be nice.
Yeah, well, we don't know. Boy, this winter's going.
You can't complain. You just got back from sunny weather.
Yeah, but I came down with a severe case of the flu, so I'm just getting over it.
Oh,
Okay, let's continue moving on. We're trying to catch up on some time here. I think we're doing a good job at that. Next item is 5D, the RCC presentation to Committee of the Whole. I think I've sent it out to Randy and Phil that this meeting is being rescheduled for May 25th from 7:15 to 8 p.m. And so we'll be on that time slot to give our presentation. So we need to start working on that presentation, or we have been working on it. Just need to start getting that in place and have it reviewed so we can make sure we're ready for that date. Try to determine who's going to be presenting what and where and things like that. Any discussion on that?
Ron, do you have any slides done for your part of it?
Yeah, I've got it done. It's on my different computer, but I can share that with you. I'll send it out tomorrow and share it with you guys.
Okay.
I kind of got a template put together, so I think we could follow that template.
I think Chris was planning on working on that before he left town. So I mean his part of the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. So hopefully it's just a matter of merging things together.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get that out to everyone tomorrow. Okay, let's see here. Good, we're catching up time here. Fitchburg Star articles, item 5E. Diane, you want to comment about that?
Josh, you're up for April, and have you finished? Do you want to give us an update on the status?
No, it's about half done. I do intend to have something to share with the group by tomorrow. in anticipation of submitting it by Friday. So apologies for the tight turnaround, but I do intend to have a full draft ready by tomorrow.
Okay, great. And then,
And then Diane, I'm next on the list, and I'll have something out by early next week for everyone to look at.
okay.
So we haven't found anything for June yet, have we?
Yeah, Kim said she was gonna do June.
Okay.
Yes.
And Will is doing July. And by the way, I'm not, my article isn't on a meat-free diet. It's just go meat-free one more day a week. It's not a necessarily meat-free diet. Although I am meat-free, I'm just one step at a time, right?
Yep.
That's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Next on item, Chris is not here, Kim, so item 5F, the Aldo Leopold MMSD Recycling Initiative update. Do you have anything on that?
Yeah, I can give a quick little update and then
Okay.
Diane might have something to add to it. A couple weeks ago, Dustin, the custodian from Leopold, had contacted Chris and I and wanted to see if we could come and meet with a couple of their new custodians. They've had a little bit of turnover there, and the two new custodians are women, and they were very excited to hear about the recycling program. And so we had an opportunity to kind of talk through with them, the background, the history, kind of how things used to be pre-pandemic, and then kind of the current system that had been set up with the recycling happening in the classrooms. They had encountered some challenges with district staff in terms of them not disposing of the milk cartons properly. And so we were able to kind of explain why they needed to be loose in the recycling container, and just kind of provide the custodian with some additional suggestions and ideas. So Chris, kind of after our meeting, we had a really good meeting with them. They were very excited. They had kind of talked to us about what challenges they were encountering. And so we kind of talked through some solutions. And I think if there's a possibility of volunteers getting back into the school, then there would be some additional support for them because the teachers are so overwhelmed. But that is something we also talked about, is providing training to the teachers as well, in terms of kind of what this program was about. So we're kind of working through those issues, and I believe there's a meeting I wasn't able to attend that I think Diane was at, talking about doing another food waste sort at Leopold before spring break happened. So it was supposed to be last Friday, I believe. So I don't know, Diane, do you know if that happened or not?
I don't know. I was out of town on Friday, so I don't know if that happened.
Yeah, I was out of town as well. So anyway, I think it's moving forward. We've identified some challenges and kind of trying to work through what those challenges are. But the good news is these custodians are very excited about the program. And so I think that'll be very helpful in us kind of working through some of those challenges.
I'd like to add that the vice principal is also extremely supportive. I mean,
yes,
considering everything that's going on and that they have to deal with, to take this on and to have such a positive attitude about it is absolutely remarkable. And also, the Madison Metropolitan School District is having volunteers jump through some hoops, but they are allowing volunteers who have jumped through those hoops to get back into the schools. So I'm hoping that once school's back in session after the spring break, we can get back in there and actually assess the problem and talk to people firsthand. And we talked about getting student council members involved so that they can spread the word, because there are only a couple of us. And if we get council members involved, then they can work with the classrooms, their grades, and take it from there. It's a little late, you know, in the school year, but I appreciate that we're keeping this moving, and hopefully next year we'll get off to a good start.
All right, thank you, Kim. This is just such a great program. I'm glad you guys are just involved with it. It's just fantastic.
Well, we've put a lot of time and effort into it, and so has the school, and so we want to make sure it succeeds.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you. Okay. Next on the agenda is item 6, council update. Gabriella.
Yes, thank you so much. So a few things for you today. Good and bad news at the same time. So the Parks Department decided to buy a hybrid vehicle to replace a recreation vehicle, but because of supply chain issues, they literally cannot get the vehicle. So they are going to have to buy a regular old-fashioned vehicle instead. But yeah, that being said, positive that the department heads are thinking about this and knowing that they are able to do it. And also another positive is that the state vehicle pool, which is a big contract that the state has that all municipalities buy into, they have hybrid vehicles on their list of vehicles that you can buy nowadays. And the cost of the vehicle through the state vehicle pool was actually cheaper than the budgeted cost. So that's also very hopeful, where it's not, there might, in some situations, there might not be a cost premium. That's a barrier to getting a hybrid vehicle. At this point, there's not electric vehicles on the state vehicle pool, but based on my understanding. So anyway, good news, bad news.
It's unfortunate the Parks Department couldn't wait a little while, because I think the backlog is going to clear up in a couple of months.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I can mention it to Scott and see if they can, but I think they are like in more close need of the rec vehicle, especially with programs starting to come up pretty soon. It's for the recreation department, so I can mention it to him and see if he can if he can push it a little bit more. Second thing, we officially terminated the TID number 6, which is part of that process of getting that money back so that we can, which is where we were creating that spending plan. As I mentioned, we had that $5.2 million through federal funds and then through the TID closure. So that TID is officially closed. The council vote, well, there's some additional steps, but the council voted to terminate it at the last council meeting. And then we also recently discussed the amendments to the ARPA TID spending plan. And the ones that we've discussed before have passed. So specifically, I think we talked about bike parking stalls in more parks, money to replace the emerald ash borer affected ash trees, updated tree inventory, a consultant for park and rides, the tree nursery. I amended the amendment to create a municipal tree nursery. I amended that to actually create community gravel beds, which is a slightly more near-term idea. And I don't want to get into it. I'd be happy to send the tree advisory presentation from Anna if you want to know more about community gravel beds, but it basically helps the trees grow better roots so that when we transplant them, they are healthier and more likely to survive. And then the solar park shelter money passed, solar panels, additional solar panels passed, and the LED street light funding also passed. So I think those are the ones that are RCC related. And then we had a recent discussion about at Committee of the Whole last week about our policy for naming parks. There actually are a lot of different parks around the city that do not have current names. And we are sort of seeking names, and they can be after individuals, after like geographic features or some feature of the park. So there's a lot of flexibility, but anyway, I just thought I'd throw it out there in case there's any ideas. The Parks Department is willing and to hear ideas come forward. So
Gabrielle, do you have that list of parks or a map showing them, or?
You know what? I don't have the list in front of me, but I can get that from Scott.
I'd like to see that.
Awesome. And then we had on Monday, we had a meeting about the Metro Transit redesign, the bus service changes in the city of Fitchburg. There was a Fitchburg specific community meeting. Yeah. that happened, but that process is still ongoing. There's meetings all over the region about the changes and talking about that. Just thought I'd flag it for you in case you're interested in following that process. There's a lot happening, and it probably will become before the council and commissions all over the region sometime in May. So it would be adopted then, and then it wouldn't go into effect until summer 2023. So hopefully there's at least a year between when the changes are adopted and when the actual change goes into effect. And then last thing is, I think I mentioned last time, but the Fitchburg Star stopped delivering to about 450 households in the city of Fitchburg. And I've been tracking it. I created a form on my website for people to report if they no longer receive it. It seems like it seems to be that the areas that were cut off are more likely to be the neighbors that are slightly lower income and might be more likely to not have internet access and therefore not access to the Fitchburg Star and through other means. I'm quite concerned about the inequality that it's creating, but I did think I'm working on a solution. If you know anybody, if you aren't receiving anymore, if you know anybody that's not receiving it, I would love for people to report that to me either through an email or through the form on my website, and I can send that. Just let me know if you want that. But obviously it's relevant to us because the articles that RCC puts together are reaching fewer people now than it was 6 months ago. And I'm hoping that I'm working on finding a solution.
Gabriella, doesn't the city pay the Star to distribute to Fitchburg residents?
No, we pay we pay for $1,400 per month for a full page ad, but we no longer pay for distribution. I am talking with the administrator. I have some ideas about how we might restore service, but that's very much like in early phases. I do hope to maybe bring something forward in the next couple of months, but I just wanted to flag it for you and let you know that if you know of people that are not getting service, I would like to hear from them because I'm trying to get a sense of, we don't know which addresses were cut off. Basically, that's part of the problem.
But the Star must know which addresses, right?
But they would not share that information with us.
Really?
Understanding. So we don't know exactly where it has been cut off.
We must be one of their biggest advertisers. We've got 2 pages.
Yeah. So I'm working on it, but I'll let you know if anything changes. But in the meantime, it's in kind of a holding pattern until I can figure out what the next steps are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriella. Okay, thank you. And so item 7 on the agenda, staff and commissioner updates. Bill, you want to give us an update on the solid waste and the stormwater portion?
Sure. We've started our brush collection again, or we'll be starting it. So if you got brush, you can get that out there and let people know that we'll be out there picking it up for the schedule. For stormwater, we're advertising for positions of full-time stormwater environmental engineer, part-time environmental engineer, and the engineering technician. We do have 2 of the interns filled for summer, but other than that, we'll be interviewing with the stormwater engineers next week, and hopefully we can get a candidate out of that.
Is that Claudia's position?
It's Claudia's position, yeah.
Okay.
So when do those interns start?
Typically when, the finals are done in a week afterwards. So I'm thinking mid-May.
Okay. Sometimes we've had interns help us with the shred event, e-cycle event, but we must not have any on board, huh?
No, they're from Platteville, so I don't know if they'd come in on the weekend and help us out. But yeah, they indicated a May start.
Okay.
Bill, I was looking through that MS4 report and I just had a couple of questions. On the folks that get fined, I mean, what's the fine that what's the dollar amount that they get fined, or are they fined a dollar amount for non-compliance?
Yeah, I think the citation is $184.
Okay. And does that money go back just in the general revenue?
it goes back into the fund it was being enforced out of. So if it was refuse and recycling, it would go back into that fund. If it was stormwater, it would go back into the stormwater fund.
Okay. And what was my other question? On page 4, it was an appendix B. Oh, in appendix B, there was I just kind of, on the pollution prevention, we give $105,000 for MMMSD's Adaptive Management Yahara Winds program. What does that go towards? Is it just the testing, or what is that for?
City of Fitchburg has to meet a certain amount of load reduction in the stormwater that we produce. And we can't do that with all of the ponds that we currently have in place. So what we've done is we've contracted with MMSD to have them make up the difference in other areas of the region that drain into the rivers and lakes. So we pay them for that difference so much per pound of deficit to make that up until we can make that up on our own.
Is that in pounds of phosphorus then, or?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Any other questions for Bill? If not, I guess, Phil, give update on sustainability.
Yeah, not a ton this month. Been working heavily on the shred recycling event. Working a lot with the bike committee and the chamber and Mike Zimmerman to bring B-Cycle to Fitchburg. So we're working on getting a phase 1 started up this spring or early summer. And then we've got the working on getting a resolution through council to approve a grant application I submitted in January through the DOT that would get a phase 2 up and running. Other than that, still working on the energy report for last year and the Green Tier Legacy Community Report. Put a whole bunch of time into that Green Tier report, and they may want me to be a beta tester for their new reporting system, which would have me just not even bother with all of the work I've been doing on the old report method, which is fun. So I'm still waiting to see which one they want me to submit.
Okay. Any updates on any of the grants that you've been working on, or have we received any, or?
Haven't heard anything yet about the Streetlights Grant. I think I'd have to check the calendar. I think May or June is when they're going to make that determination.
Okay. How much was that for?
That was for $200,000 to $300,000. I don't remember the exact amount. I think it was around $200,000. And then the DOT grant for B-Cycle, I don't have a commitment from the DOT, but everything that they have told me gives me the impression that if we pass the resolution, that we're almost certainly going to get that grant. So it's just kind of a matter of getting the resolution passed, making sure that any council concerns, because there is a local match that's required with that one, making sure that council is comfortable with that amount, and then submit that to the DOT. And I'm very optimistic that one will come through. They really had some good things to say about the proposal that we put together.
Gabriella, is there any way that the extra money that we're going to be getting can be used as matching for grants?
Yep. That's written into the original plan. But I believe there's a lot of flexibility for that on the staff, if I'm not mistaken.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
But yeah.
We're just kind of with several things pertaining to that. I tend to be cautious, don't want to overpromise anything. So I'm feeling optimistic about this, but until things are signed, I'm not going to commit anyone to anything.
Okay, great. Is there are we going to have a solar farm tour this summer, or any update on that, or?
No updates on that.
Okay.
If we are interested in that, I can certainly reach out. I know that there was, I know they had every intent of beginning some publicity surrounding the O'Brien farm. I don't know what they've actually done so far. So I'd have to follow up with with John and Jesse and them to see where they're at.
You know if they've done any signage?
I'm not sure the status of the signage. I know they were looking at putting a sign kiosk right where the Badger State Trail intersects with Seminole Highway. They were still waiting for approval between Fitchburg and the state, just trying to figure out exactly who owned that land and who they needed approval from. But that's the main place they were looking to put a sign was at that intersection.
Mm-hmm.
Different topic. Any progress on the sustainability plan?
Nothing yet. Nothing yet. Looking to put together an RFP, but just kind of been bogged down with some other stuff.
Okay.
And what was the final amount for the for the sustainability plan? Are we going to get any augmentation to what was approved?
Yeah, so that's in the mayor's original plan included additional funding for the sustainability plan. It was vague in terms of exactly how much more, but we might be looking at sort of a phase two, like phase one, phase two.
Okay.
Because it's not allocated at this. Nothing is allocated from that pot of money at this point. So
the RFP will be written around like a phase one scope of work.
I guess that would be, I mean, maybe, I feel like Phil maybe hasn't worked on that yet, but I would assume that we'd construct it in a way that we can add on later. That's my understanding from my conversations with Phil in the past. Yeah.
Okay.
Phil, I just have a question. When you mentioned that you spent a lot of time on the shred event and the e-cycling, which I really appreciate, but since from one year to the next, we're trying to keep things fairly consistent. Does it involve, like when we get to the fall, will it involve as much time? Or is it...
I hope it involves less time. So this is the first time that I've headed it up. So last year in the fall, Dakota led things. And so I really just kind of came in at the end. So this is the first time that I've been leading this process. And it just meant kind of figuring out some of those details, going through communications. There was one of the vendors wanted to change some things up. And so that involved a bit of back and forth and a couple meetings. Yeah, it's just kind of losing the efficiency of having somebody new take it over for the first time.
Okay. Well,
so there weren't a ton of changes. It was just kind of getting up to speed on this.
Thanks for taking that on.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we have somebody familiar running it in the fall. And I'm trying to remember what date it is, but yeah, we'll see where everyone's time is. And I would assume it'll be a little bit quicker in the fall.
Good.
Okay, wow, we're really ahead of schedule now.
Good job, Kim.
Just one quick question.
Good job, Ron.
Just one quick question. It came to know, at least on 7D, if I'm leading the discussion and for some reason I lose, my internet goes out or something like that on these virtual meetings, what's a backup plan for that? But you folks still may be on, but I may not be there. So is there a backup plan when we have these meetings that if we lose the host?
Well, you can always call in.
Okay.
There's usually a phone number that you can get from that is included with the Zoom link.
Okay.
So you can I had to do that once because I couldn't get the audio part of it. So I called in.
Okay.
Yeah, the best option is to call, but you can also, if it's about who's going to run the meeting, we can appoint a vice chair of the meeting. That's something that some commissions have.
I don't know if and yeah, to that point, since this month, I know that specifically with the dark sky topic, Ron, you wanted to be here for it. But if we have another instance where you're unable to make a meeting rather than rescheduling something we've already got in the calendar, it might be good to have a vice chair who could then lead the meeting in your absence.
Actually, in the past, Ron, when a chair can't make a meeting, he or she has just asked somebody else to take the helm for that meeting. So depending on what the topics are and what their availability is.
I think per city policy, it's probably safest to actually have an official vice chair elected. I don't suspect anybody would ever complain, but just to be safe, that would probably be best.
I think I agree. I think the best practice would be to have a vice chair.
So how do you go through that process then?
I think we'd throw something on an agenda and have a quick vote.
Yeah, we just elect it. Someone can nominate somebody or nominate themselves, and then we vote on it.
I mean, is that for all future meetings or just one meeting at a time?
It would typically be for all meetings.
Okay.
And it's supposed to occur the first meeting after the election. So as the new committee members come on board, you elect a new chair or and vice chair for the meeting.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
So we can put that on the May agenda.
Okay, let's put that on the May agenda. All right, any other discussion, any other items? If not, I really appreciate everyone's time tonight. And we don't have a meeting next month, but we have a lot of things going on, the spring waterway cleanup, the recycling event. So we will be busy. So look forward to our next meeting in May.
Thanks, everyone. Hope you feel better, Ron.
Oh, I'm getting better every day. Thank you.
Good.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Oh, I'll move to adjourn.
Oh, I like to go ahead,
Oh.
adjourn. Yeah, adjourn the meeting. Before I click that too quick. Go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 9:37. 8:37.
8:37.
8:30. Yeah, my
I was
computer
gonna
did.
say, I did a horrible job if we're still here at 9:37.
No, my computer didn't switch over daylight saving time, so I got to fix that. All right. We don't have to make a motion for that, do we?
No, we don't.
Okay, good. All right, so meeting's adjourned at 8:37. And thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
Thank you.